Welcome to a quick discussion of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Since it's May the 4th, Star Wars Day, I thought it would be fun to play a little bit of one of the most beloved Star Wars games of all time, and reminisce for a bit. I have a lot of memories of playing this game and the original Battlefront. The original Battlefront released in 2004, and this game released a year later in 2005 to coincide with Revenge of the Sith. So the first Battlefront focuses more on the original trilogy and episodes 1 and 2, while this game has a greater focus on the prequels in general, but specifically episode 3 since that was missing in the original. The original Battlefront is the game that made me want a PS2, because a lot of games I really wanted back then were multi-platform on GameCube, but this was a rare exception to that, so I really wanted a PS2 to actually play that game. I think it was worth it in the end, because beyond the Star Wars games that were exclusive to PS2 and Xbox, there were plenty of really amazing games on PS2 that I got to try as a result. But yeah, this is the series that made me want a PS2. Battlefront 2 is really well remembered. It's considered one of the best Star Wars games of all time. Even with more modern takes on the same idea, these games still hold up very well. So the basic gameplay involves trying to capture command posts around various levels. So we're on Mustafar from Revenge of the Sith, which is actually really well recreated. That was one of the things I really liked about these games, is how they really tried to accurately remake all of the locations from the movies in the game. So like, if you look at the final duel of Episode 3, you can actually find a lot of those areas in this level. We can also play as heroes. That's something new to Battlefront 2. In the original, they were actually AI controlled. So for example, you could have like Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker fighting either for or against you, but you weren't able to directly play as them. In this game, you actually do have quite a few heroes to play. They're tied to levels, so for example, Obi-Wan is the playable hero on Mustafar, Darth Maul is the playable villain here, for the Clone Wars era. A lot of areas like this are actually not era-locked, so you could play a battle between the Rebellion and the Empire instead. So yeah, some areas are era-locked, like Endor and Hoth can only be played with the Rebellion and Empire, like Geonosis can only be played with the clones and the Separatists. So even with some limitations like that, and not being able to like choose what hero you play on each level, there's quite a lot of variety here. There are plenty of modes. The main mode, which we're currently playing, revolves around capturing command posts in order to keep more reinforcements from arriving. So there's two numbers on the top of the screen. We want to drain the red number to 0, but if we manage to hold all the command posts, we'll be able to win automatically because no more reinforcements can arrive. Overall, it's a very fun system that allows for a lot of replayability because of how many different ways you can actually approach each level, like going for different command posts, choosing different character classes, like heavy units with more powerful weapons, or like sniper classes, and so on. And yeah, we can also play as hero characters. Their health gradually drains to keep them from being overpowered, which is very good, but defeating more enemies will restore your health. The AI can't play as heroes outside of the Heroes vs. Villains mode on Tatooine. I'm pretty sure the DLC for Xbox added an additional Heroes vs. Villains area, but I actually don't remember what planet it is. This is the Steam version. It's also available currently on Xbox. Let's switch classes for a change of pace. Let's go for the Jet Trooper. Actually, we can't play as them yet. Okay, I guess we're going with the Clone Engineer. So basically, the Xbox version was re-released for Xbox One with, I think, enhancements even, like boosted resolution. The frame rate is capped at 30 unlike the Steam version, which can go up to 60 frames per second, so it doesn't run quite as well. But you also have exclusive DLC. So Battlefront 2 had a few cut levels from the original, like Ren Var, which was a expanded universe location at the time for the Clone Wars, and also Bespin was a level in the main game of Battlefront 1 that got removed for this game. But the DLC on Xbox adds in the cut content like that, along with some additional characters like Kit Fisto and Asajj Ventress, who is probably actually better known now than when this game released because of the Clone Wars animated series. Now, the game is currently available on Xbox One, back compatible in Series X. But they also made the DLC available for free through a patch. So if you have the Series X, you can actually play the DLC content. I'm sure someone's modded it into the Steam version by now, so it's probably not really exclusive. The PS2 version is kind of lost to time because of the lack of back compatibility there, which is kind of a shame, but I feel like the Xbox version, from what I understand, is inherently a lot better because of the additional content, so it's not too big of a loss. The Steam version does have some exclusive, or the PC version in general. There's a bonus mode called XL, which is like a large-scale battle that's not connected to command posts. Like, I think you can't capture command posts, so it's more of an all-out, like, team versus team kind of battle. And yeah, that's on the console versions to my knowledge. So yeah, overall there's plenty of content. There's also like ship battles where you can actually land on the ship and destroy it from the inside, or at least destroy key systems. There's also capture the flag. So yeah, there's plenty of variety, and even modes where you can play as like Ewoks fighting the Empire, or like Gungans fighting the droids and Naboo, and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot to do in this game, and for the time, I feel like this game had a ton of replay value because of just how much content it had, and if you were a Star Wars fan at the time, yeah, there's no shortage of things to do in this. There's also a really good campaign that helps to bridge the gap between episodes 3 and 4, but also goes into the original trilogy as well. Like, it goes up to Battle of Hoth from episode 5. So yeah, this game is on Steam and Xbox, so if you haven't played it and are a Star Wars fan, or a fan of like the original trilogy or the prequels, this is definitely worth playing. It's not that expensive anymore because it's fairly old, and yeah, it's definitely worth playing if you are a fan. Even as someone who's more of a casual fan nowadays, it's still fun to play once in a while, because of its attempts at creating very authentic level designs with the technology of the time. Obviously, it doesn't look great by today's standards, but overall, it does look pretty impressive. And there's only one reinforcement left for the droids, so we've almost won this battle. Problem is trying to find the last reinforcement. We might end up actually capturing the command post before that happens. So actually, they are trying to capture a command post, the final droid. So yeah, that's an example of the timer running out. So, we won. That was abrupt. One other really cool feature of this game and the original are the ability to set up playlists. So when you get to the end of one battle, you'll immediately be thrown into the next battle. For the second battle for this video, I decided to go with Endor because I actually really like Return of the Jedi. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies, like top 3, which I feel isn't the most popular opinion. I feel like it's largely nostalgia. But yeah, I do like a lot of the Star Wars movies. I tended to not really branch out to the expanded universe very much, and even now I tend to stick with like the main works and not go through like the spin-offs. Like, I haven't seen Rogue One, even though everyone says it's really good, and I probably should get around to that at some point. So yeah, graphically this game isn't too bad for the time, but more recently there have been more attempts at this style of game. After Battlefront 2, a Battlefront 3 was in the works, but famously was cancelled. It was for 360 and PS3, and was apparently fairly close to being done before it got cancelled. And then some of the concepts of that were taken and reused for a later game. The next game, though, would be Renegade Squadron for the PSP, which was actually a pretty okay game. The only problem with it was very limited because of the PSP's lack of an extra analog stick, so aiming was not easy. So, a cool game conceptually, but it didn't play very well. And the same goes for that game's sequel, Elite Squadron, which was kind of like a handheld version of the original Battlefront 3 concept. It also got a DS version that was like a top-down shooter, which was also not bad, but just kind of more limited. Battlefront Elite Squadron was really well known for having the concept from the cancelled version of 3 that had ground-to-air battles, where you could actually fly to space and destroy a Star Destroyer or like a capital ship for the other side. But there are loading screens, so it's not as seamless as the original design for 360 and PS3. Battlefront 3 has leaked since, so there are playable versions, sort of, like playable alphas floating around on the internet, and it definitely looks unfinished, but the promise, it looks very promising, which is why it's kind of a shame that no game has ever attempted that since. Since then, EA got the rights to Star Wars games around the time of Force Awakens, so they released Battlefront, a reboot of sorts, for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And that game was not very well liked because it ended up having really bad balance issues and poor matchmaking. It also didn't have much content at launch and had a really huge season pass, and that created problems for matchmaking because you could only like play these games with people who had the DLC, so it ends up dividing the lobbies like into pieces. Like if you want to play on Bespin, you have to go to a specific Bespin lobby, which created problems of actually trying to get enough people to play on the DLC levels. It's really pretty though, and I still think it's a fun enough game if you're into multiplayer type games. Unlike the original Battlefronts, there wasn't much in the way of single player, sadly, which was kind of a deal breaker for me as someone who doesn't really like online competitive type games. However, after that they released Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2017 for The Last Jedi. And I actually think that's a pretty okay game, but it's not as good as it should have been. Basically, EA dropped support for the game in spring 2020, and there were a ton of glitches and other issues with the game, like balance problems, and just a general lack of content because they had to rush the last few months of the game. So unfortunately, the game feels a little bit rushed and unpolished, but what's there is mostly fun. It launched in a really bad state with horrible pay-to-win microtransactions and other issues like how heroes were locked, and you had to basically play to earn credits to unlock heroes, and thus you would have to play like many dozens of hours to unlock like Darth Vader as a playable character. So yeah, in general, Battlefront 2 had a very poor launch because of all the controversy surrounding it, but I feel like it managed to turn around quite a bit by the end, but not all the way because of how fast they had to drop support out of nowhere, unfortunately, to work on the next Battlefield. For now, the future of the Battlefront series is a bit uncertain. There might be a Battlefront 3 someday. I would like to see another attempt because I feel like EA, oddly enough, DICE specifically, were pretty well qualified to work on a game like this, but just weren't really given the proper opportunities to actually make like the definitive Star Wars game that they were capable of making, if that makes sense. So yeah, in general, I actually like the Battlefront games quite a bit, even though some of them are a bit rough around the edges, like the PSP games and the EA ones. But yeah, the classics are classics for a reason. These are still very fun games to go back to. Again, there's like lots of modding, so again, I'm sure the Xbox DLC content has been modded in by now, along with tons of other content, even like level designs from Battlefront 3's leaked alpha have been incorporated into this game, which is really cool. And plenty of original ideas as well, and even like the ground-to-space combat that was in the original plan for 3 has been brought into this game. So yeah, overall it's very impressive. I would recommend the Steam version for that reason, but the Xbox version is also fine as well, because of having like the extra DLC stuff. I'm pretty sure even the original Battlefront had like one DLC level that ended up in 2. I think it was Jabba's Palace. So that's not quite as special, I think, as the other way around, bringing in Battlefront 1 levels to 2, like for that game's DLC. So yeah, in general, I really would recommend this game if you're a fan, or if you're a fan of like multiplayer, like online type games like this, because the Steam version's servers were actually restored not that long ago, like a few years ago. Also, by the way, this game was super popular back in the day. I remember hearing that at the time of the Xbox Live shutdown for the original Xbox, this game actually rivaled Halo 2 in player count, which was a big deal because Halo was kind of at the height of its popularity with 2's multiplayer, I remember. That's a game I've actually never played, Halo 2. I've only played like 2 hours of Halo 1, and then never got around to finishing that or playing the other games. Maybe someday I'll get around to the Master Chief Collection now that's on PC. Yeah, overall, I really like this game. I would recommend this game over the first game, which is also available on Steam and Xbox, just because there is more content. I do think the first game has a little bit more polish, because it had more development time, I think. This game, having a year between the first game and this one, I feel like it's a little bit rough around the edges at times, like the graphics aren't as polished, like for the environments and character models, but it's still serviceable enough, and I'm also playing on low settings to actually capture it without too much trouble, which is also not making it look as good as it could. And there are mods to boost the graphical quality as well, like HD mods and things like that. But yeah, I'd even recommend trying the EA ones if you like Star Wars, because even though those games launched in really bad states, they were able to turn around their quality a little bit, and now that they're like $10, yeah, I'd say Battlefront 2, the 2017 game, is probably worth playing now because of how much content they added and how they fixed all the microtransaction pay-to-win stuff. So yeah, in general, either game is fine. I think both have very different styles to them, so they aren't even directly comparable, despite both being called Battlefront 2. Yeah, both are definitely worth checking out, I'd say, if you are a fan of Star Wars. We're just about to the end of this fight. I remember one thing that was better in the first game is you could actually destroy the shield bunker in Endor. Like, you could actually destroy it, and the command post would actually go away for that point, which was always really cool. And this game is a traditional command point, where you don't have the option to, like, blow up the bunker. So that's kind of a shame. Yeah, overall, both games of the originals are fairly similar. Like, most of the levels do carry over, so that's why I'd say just go for Battlefront 2 instead of 1, even though there are some exclusive things in the first game. Both are cheap, though, so you might as well, like, try both if you really like one or the other. But with that being said, we're just about done here, so I think we're going to call it here for now. So thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for another discussion.